Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. Boom, shakalaka done. I am proud to be sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp. Help. BetterHelp. Which is an online therapy company. In other words, you fill out a bunch of information, they will match you with an online therapist in your state, or if you are in outside of the United States, they will match you with a therapist here in the US. So, which is really good, especially, and I'm looking at you, UK, I've heard from various people that it's a waiting list of redonkulous proportions to get into the United Kingdom healthcare. So if you are wanting to get into a therapist, get on to betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. I will put the information down in the description. So I'm very happy to be sponsored by them. Thank you so much. And yes, this is a good place to get therapy, especially if you are outside the United States, having a hard time getting onto the waiting list there, or if you are in a rural area, you don't want to see the therapist that is in your city and the next city is too far away, get on to betterhelp.com, BETTER, help, HELP.com/Chris Godinez, and it will get you to a therapist in your area. All of the therapists are master's level or PhD level. They are all licensed in their state. If you don't like your therapist, you just go back in through the portal, say, I want a different therapist. You fill out a few questions, bada bing, bada boom. They get you to a different therapist. So there you go. Alrighty then, let us hit questions. So, why do they like to break people's things or ruin what others cherish? Short answer, because they're asshats. That's why. Long answer is they do not feel love. They do not feel the same kind of emotions that we feel. So when we have something that we cherish, we love it, right? We assign a value to it. So like, pictures of family and friends, or pottery, or something that, a grandmother or great-grandmother made, or something like that, they will ruin it because they have no emotional connection at all to that whatsoever. So that is why they ruin things, because you feel an emotional connection to that thing and they are jealous. I know. It's mind-blowing. So they get jealous over things. They get jealous over pets. If we show affection to a pet, they will be jealous of the pet. If we show love or cherish for a object, a pottery piece, an antique, a picture or whatever, it got broken. Oops, and it's on purpose. Guarantee it, because they are jealous of that thing. Because you're showing your love to, remember, to them in their minds, they're crazy. Let's just state this for the record. They are crazy. To them, love is a finite thing. So if you're showing love to a thing, you're not giving them love, therefore they're being deprived. Don't get me started. Anyway, that's why they do that. That is why they destroy things that we love. And that includes pets. That is why they, leave the gate open, or hurt the dog, or hurt the cat, or hurt the hamster, or hurt the... It's intentional. Don't ever kid yourself that it's not. It is intentional. Abso-freaking-lutely. Especially if they make no effort to try to find the pet that got out. I mean, gates get left open. It happens. But with them, it's a consistent thing and it's on purpose. Once, total fluke. Twice, coincidence. 3 or more times, you got a pattern. So pay attention to that. So pay attention to the pattern. So that is why they destroy things we love, because they are jealous. They can't handle it. Okay. What is normal? Is it normal for the negative thoughts to surface when we are trying to express ourselves authentically or artistically? Yes. Because remember, we've got that negative internal critic over here going, not good enough, not good enough. Why are you doing that? This is stupid, blah, 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 blah. You can't do that, blah, 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 whatever. And it's just going to vomit back whatever the abuser has shoved into your head. So yes, when we are being our authentic self, or when we're expressing ourselves artistically, that negative critic is going to pop up, or that abusive voice is going to pop up, because we are daring to do what they have told us not to do. Don't you dare. Don't you dare be artistic. Don't you dare be good. Don't you dare outdo me. Don't you dare be authentic. Don't you dare be real. So yeah, it's normal for that to pop up, and you just kind of have to go, I hear you, I see you, go play in traffic. Bye-bye, bye-bye now, you're not me. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. It's what happens. So eventually that becomes less and less as you master those thoughts, as you tell the thoughts what to do, as you don't allow them to control you, as you go, I hear you and I see you. I'm not resisting you. Because remember, thought, I'm resisting it. Oh my gosh, I'm resisting. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it. What am I thinking about the whole time? That one thought. But if we go, yep, there's that thought. I'm not inviting you in for coffee because y'all are going to stay for breakfast and I don't want that. I'm also not going to ignore it, right? Or resist it. I'm going to validate it. Yep, there it is. Yeah, that's my ex's voice, or that's my boss's voice, or that's my dad or mom's voice. Yep. And it is not true for me anymore. Thanks for playing. Go play in traffic. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. See where I'm going with that? Okay. I hope that answered the question. Yes, that does happen. And it's because we're becoming mindful. And this is a good thing. So think of it this way. Remember the levels of consciousness. Unconscious incompetence. We're bumbling around, hitting walls, not understanding why we're getting hurt. Conscious incompetence is the next one, is where we go, oh, there's that thought. Oh, ooh, ow, I don't like it. Ooh, I'm doing things that I don't like. What? Ooh, where did I learn this from? So now we're into consciousness, right? Conscious incompetence. So we were in unconscious incompetence. Now we're in conscious incompetence. Like, oh, shoot, this is what I'm doing. What the heck? Then eventually we get to conscious competence. You know, we're practicing mindfulness. It's kind of where we're moving into. Practicing mindfulness, recognizing the thoughts, sending them along the way. And then eventually we get into unconscious competence, meaning we don't even have to think about it, we just do it. So there you go. All right. How do we know if we are actually the narcissist, even though we really don't want to be, or if it is just learned behaviors? I have said this multiple times, and I'll say it again. If you are the one worried about being the abuser, you probably are not, because narcissists do not worry about being abusive. In their minds, I kid you not, they literally think they have never done a wrong thing in their entire lives. Like, seriously. Like, I know. Like, for the rest of us, because we sit here and we second guess. We're like, ooh, did I do the right thing? Is this the right thing? Should I have done this? Could I have done things differently? You know, we question, right? They don't question. Let's just ponder that for a moment. They do not question. I'm not even kidding you. My dad used to say something like, I'm never lost, I'm just temporarily confused, which is why we would end up in the middle of a forest, you know, our car centered on a boulder somewhere, and I'm like, oh, we're going to die. Because the man would never ask for directions because he was too proud, and he was never wrong. And he literally said that, I'm never wrong. He actually said that, and I'm sitting there going, what's it like to be God? Who died and declared you God? You see where I'm going with that? So healthy, normal people worry about how we affect others because we have a heart and we have a soul and we have empathy and we love and we have emotions. Narcissists do not, especially when they get to the dark triad. When they get to the, the psychopath with the narcissism and then Machiavellian, which is control freak, it's all ego. It is all ego. It is all about the ego. So if you're questioning if you're the narcissist and you're working on the fleas, if you're like, ooh, I don't like that behavior, let me change it. And then you change it, guess what? Congratulations, you're not the narcissist. So narcissists don't work on themselves. They don't. They'll go to therapy 1, maybe 3 times. And then as soon as the therapist goes, and what is your part in this? They go, oh, you're incompetent, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you guns, and they blast out. And they're not willing to work on themselves because they're not willing to face that they're not God. They're not willing to face that they're not right. They're not willing to face that they're human. That's why death frightens them so badly. And I should probably talk about that again at some point. But yeah, that's how we know that we're not that. And so it's part 1, being concerned, and part 2 is taking action to correct the fleas, to correct the behaviors, to make amends, to clean up messes, and to do better. That's how you know you're not a narcissist. And then it doesn't happen again. Because remember with a narcissist, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then they just keep doing the same behavior over and over and over again. If you actively work on correcting those behaviors you don't like, then you're probably not the narcissist. So go get with a good therapist, work on the behaviors you don't like, read the self-esteem workbook, read the Disease to Please and by Harriet Breaker, and the self-esteem workbook is by Glenn Schiraldi, and Codependent No More, Beyond Codependent No More by Melanie Beattie. Read those books, work with a therapist, work on that stuff. It can be fixed. If it's learned behavior, it can be unlearned and replaced with healthy behavior, just like I talked about last week. Okay, I hope that answered the question. Okay, my ex totally copied my personality after we broke up. Why would they do that? Any thoughts? Because they don't have their own personality. So, especially when they get into the dark triad part, when they're psychopathic, narcissistic, and Machiavellian, they don't know who they are. They don't feel. They don't love. They don't have a moral compass. They don't have empathy. They can't, and so that's why they are attracted to people who are highly empathic. That's why they love feeding off of borderlines, especially the ones down at the lower end of the spectrum, or actually even the higher end of the spectrum, because it's just drama and they just feed off of them. So they love to feed off of people who are highly empathic, highly sensitive, highly normal is what I like to put it. They feel. They love to feed off of people who feel, because they don't. And so they think, because they don't get it, they think if they start copying you, if they dress like you, if they suddenly start hanging out at the same gym or hanging out at the same coffee house or listening to the same music you do, even though they didn't like it before, or taking over a hobby that you had, that suddenly somehow magically they are going to become you, because they think that they can absorb your magic, your soul, seriously, by becoming you, by doing the things that you do. But what they don't understand is that what makes us us is that we love, and we are empathic, and we feel, and we have joy over simple things. When something goes well for a family member or friend, we celebrate that. We tell them how awesome they are. They can't do that. They won't do that. In fact, they'll find something critical and nasty and snarky to say and piss on that person's campfire, because that's who they are. So when they start copying someone, it's because they want to absorb, or they want to become you, literally, because they think that by doing all of the outside trappings, they're going to somehow magically get your stuff. And two, because you are such an empathic person and awesome, they think that, oh, great cover. Oh, look, I'm going to pretend that I'm empathic, and I'm going to do all the things that this person did so I can suck in my next victim. Yeah, it's like what was the movie? It was The Thing, where it would pretend to be other people. The Kurt Russell movie. Oh my God, that one freaked me out. Anyway, love Kurt Russell, but so it's like The Thing. So they become the person so that they can feed off of the next victim, so that they can trap the next victim. So if I have all the trappings of being, empathic and kind and normal and human, I can ensnare my next victim. That's another part of it. So hope that answered your question. Okay. My friend's mom died 2 days ago. My heart is still broken for her. I want so bad to help her through it. All she needs is peace, so there's nothing I can do. So this is the sucky thing about death. Death bites for those who are left behind. It really does. And when we are helping somebody through a death or helping them grieve, all you can do is hold the space. That's it. So the thing of it is that everybody is there in the first, few months, the first 3 months of the death. Everybody's there. How are you doing? Everybody's there. How are you doing? How are you doing? 6 months out, nobody's asking how you're doing anymore. So you got to understand, going through a death, that first year is hard. That entire first year, because you got to get through all the first, New Year's, birthday, anniversary, Easter, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, anniversary of the death. It's a whole year of adjusting from this person is here in my life to, oh God, this is going to make me cry, to this person is no longer here. And we have to move them into a different part of our heart so that we can think of them and we can, have good memories of them. If it was a good relationship, if it was an abuser, not so much. And, that's a little bit different grieving. That's called complicated grief. But if this is a healthy, normal, relationship that they had and you're trying to help this person through, the best thing you can do, check up on them. Every once in a while, how you doing? Hey, let's go for coffee. You know, if this was non-COVID, but you know, or hey, let's do a Zoom session. Let's have coffee. You have coffee over there. I'll have coffee over here. We'll talk. How are you doing? Tell me everything. You know, you hold the space and you talk about the person who died. This is the thing that just absolutely blows my mind, is the way our society has such a dysfunctional relationship with the natural event of death. Death happens, right? Narcissists don't want to acknowledge that because they're terrified of it because they can't control it. So it's important to talk about the person who died, because suddenly everybody stops talking about it because they're like, oh, I don't want to upset the person. Oh, I don't want to upset them. Well, here's the deal. They're going to be upset. They've just lost somebody they loved. And it's important to talk about the person because it helps with the grieving process. You know, when my mom died, it was so funny. She would always be like, no, I don't want anything to eat when we'd go out to dinner, right? And this is when we were traveling with my niece, which was so funny. Oh my God, that was a trip. And she would be like, no, I don't want anything to eat. And then she'd be like, that looks really good. Can I have a little bite of that? We would just laugh because we knew to order extra food because we knew she would be, you know, like, oh, that looks really, well, I don't really want anything, but can I have a little bite of that, you know? And that kind of eases the pain because it was funny. You know, my mom did have a pretty good sense of humor. So, you know, and it was funny because she had these little quirks that she was just not quite aware of, you know? So, you know, and it became a joke, you know? So, in fact, we got her one of those long forks for Christmas so that she could reach across the table and grab somebody else's food. Anyway, but yeah, it's important to talk about things like that. Funny little things that the person did, or, you know, how you loved them, how you remembered them, that type of thing. That helps the person. But with a narcissist, of course, it's radio silence. They don't want to talk about death. They don't want to talk about somebody who died. They don't want to think about their own mortality. Oh my God, you know, I'm never going to die. You know, my dad used to say that. He was like, I'm never going to die. I'm like, yeah, any luck you will. So you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just, it's crazy. They don't want to deal with death. So in helping with somebody process the death process, the grieving process, hold the space for them. Check in on them. Do Zoom coffee sessions. You know, how are you doing? You know, what's going on? How are things going? You know, that kind of thing. So, yeah. So that's the best way to do it. You just hold the space for them, check in on them. Don't not check in on them. You know, you want to check in on them every couple of weeks, you know, but do it throughout the year, that first year especially, because that is the hardest part of the grieving. That is when you are doing the most heavy lifting as far as the grieving is concerned. So yeah, absolutely. How do we avoid staying the victim in the victim mentality after abuse and starting to take accountability? I feel this is somehow related to codependency. Well, yeah, okay. So yes, it is related to codependency. It's also related to self-esteem. So people who have low self-esteem have a very hard time taking accountability because they turn it into shame and they turn it into guilt. So you want to be working on your self-esteem. With self-esteem comes self-accountability. So the Self-Esteem Workbook, Glenn Schiraldi, or You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, work those two, either or and or both. And as your self-esteem rises, you're able to go, yeah, I did that, and I'm going to clean it up. Here's the amends. Here's what I need to do. Okay, I've done it. Good. I forgive myself, and I move on after the amends are made. Does that make sense? So that comes with self-esteem. So I would get with a really good therapist and I would start working on the shame and the guilt, you know, because that's what we get shoved into our head by our abusers, whether they are parental units or whether they are romantic partners or whatever. So you want to work on the shame, the blame, the guilt, you know, and get rid of all of that. I am so sick of these spam phone calls. There we go. Sorry. And they're all like the fake numbers, you know, that kind of have the first 3 digits of your number and you're like, oh, that's somebody I know. No. Anyway, okay, so where was I? So get with a good therapist. I'm serious as a heart attack. Get with a good therapist. Work on self-esteem. This is where, and this is why I partnered with BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. Find a counselor. and start working on self-esteem. Start working on taking accountability. Get rid of the shame. Get rid of the guilt, because that's not a part of that. And yeah, that's why we have a hard time taking accountability, because we turn it into I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm horrible, I'm this, I'm that, because that's what our abusers have told us. So yeah, absolutely, you want to do that. Okay, hope that answered the question. I am still a student and I cannot provide money for a psychologist, but self-problems I face lead to search to realize that my family is narcissistic and my sister is highly narcissistic. Okay. So what you're going to do is you are going to look for low cost to no cost. So I do know that BetterHelp offers financial aid, so you could look into that. I don't know if that means sliding scale or not. So you would have to go to the website and check that out. So betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. The other thing you could do is you could go to findhelp.org, which used to be Ask Bertha. So findhelp.org offers all kinds of social services. So, you know, housing, legal, dental, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And try that. That would be a good place to start to see if there's low cost, no cost. The other thing you can do too is if you have zero money, universities that do psychology departments often look for people to practice on for their practicums. So call your local university and see if there is openings to be practiced on, and realize that they're being watched by the master level and above professors. So do that. That would be the way to do that. Get the books, start reading them. Get the books and start reading them. That would start helping you, especially the self-esteem workbook. That's kind of the place to start, because self-esteem is really the basis for everything. I keep saying that and people are like, it can't be that simple. And I'm like, yes, it is that simple. So start with the self-esteem workbook by Glenn Schiraldi, or You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. Okay. Okay, I always get voices in my head from my family saying to me, we are not narcissists, evidenced by no psychiatrist has ever told us that. What do you think? If it walks like a narcissistic duck, and it quacks like a narcissistic duck, and it takes a dump like a narcissistic duck, well, you know, you don't necessarily need someone else to tell you that. So, you know, if they're behaving in toxic ways, they're toxic. And plus the fact, anybody who has to tell you, you know, I'm not this, I'm not, you know, you can pretty much bet they are, you know. Or it's like if somebody has to sit there and go, I'm so smart, you can pretty much bet they're not. So, you know what I'm saying? Because a lion does not need to announce that they're a lion. Well, look, there's a lion, there you go, acting like a lion. So, yeah. So basically, if they were toxic, if you felt like you were harmed by them, then you were. Perception is everything. So get with a good therapist, start working it through. Absolutely. And work on that. Work on those thought patterns. Work on the mistaken thoughts, the mistaken beliefs. Where did you get this from? Why did they say that? What was their motivation? What was the agenda? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. When changing my behavior, I am full of self-disgust at how I acted for years, especially with my son. Can I do anything to stop the huge remorse I feel? Okay, this is normal, guys. Validation, feeling remorse or disgust with our previous actions, our previous self, when we were in unconscious incompetence, totally normal when we come back up to conscious incompetence. So the trick or the task is finding self-compassion. Have compassion for you. Did you know better at the time? No, you didn't. Could you have done better at the time? No, you couldn't, because you didn't have the information. Now you do. Now you know better. I'm going to sound like Maya Angelou. Now you know better. Now you can do better. Right? And so do we beat up a 5-year-old for not knowing how to do trigonometry? I would hope not. I'm sure abusers do. But if a kid doesn't know something, you teach them and you help them and you show them the path, right? And you're gentle with them. Yeah, you couldn't know that. Let me show you. Okay, now you know better. Now you can do better. So the disgust and the remorse, that's the shame. Remember, abusers are really adept at shoving shame into our space. So what you want to do is you want to work on, again, self-esteem workbook, Glenn Schiraldi, Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker. Where did this come from? Where is this? where is all of this coming from? CPTSD, From Surviving to Thriving by Pete Walker. Excellent book. So, you work on the abuse, you work on the self-esteem, you work on your boundaries, and you forgive yourself. Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. Now, that's usually about other people, but it can be applied to yourself as well. Also, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. 2 beautiful books. Actually, she's got a set of 3, so pick whichever one works for you. So she's got a series. She's great. I love her. So Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. Both amazing, transformative books. So yeah, do that. And compassion for you. You did not know what you did not know. Now you do. And so now you take the next right step. And the next right step is to stop beating yourself up and being your own abuser, because that's kind of what we do, is we kind of become our own abuser. So we got to kick all that shame, that blame, that guilt, that crap out. And then we do amends, just like in AA. What needs to happen? First of all, you got to work on yourself. You got to get your self-esteem up. You got to get your boundaries going. You got to work on the abuse, and then you make amends as you go along. It's like, what do I need to do to fix this? How do I fix this, or can this be fixed? And it may not be fixed. So when we make amends in AA, the amends are for us. They're not really for the other person. The other person is going to have whatever reaction they are going to have. And that is the big thing that most sponsees are terrified of, is they're like, but what if? What if they tell me to go pound sand? Well, they might. They very well might, but that's on them. The important thing is that you have reached out and you have done the next right step. You've admitted your mistake. You've asked to make amends. And if they tell you to go pound sand, that's on them. Let them go. So that's the thing. It's like, we do what we can. It's the Buddhist worry chart. Is there a problem? Oh, hell yeah, there is. What can I do about it? Is there something you can do about it? Well, limited. Okay, well then do it. Okay, and then with the rest, let it go. So gentle self-compassion is a part of healing, because our abusers had no compassion for us at all. And we sometimes grow up not having any compassion for ourselves. Really important that we develop and we encourage and grow self-compassion, because out of the self-compassion, we then have compassion for every living being. So work on that. Okay. Which book to start with? I'm not getting any younger. Wait, none of us are. Jeez Louise. Any of them. Any of them. I say start with the Self-Esteem Workbook, because that's really the basis of everything that needs to grow from there. It also helps to do 2 books at once. So, because sometimes one book can become kind of overwhelming, and then it's good to kind of switch back and forth and work on 2 at once, so that you can kind of have 2 to bounce between. So oftentimes what I'll tell people is start with the Self-Esteem Workbook and CPTSD, From Surviving to Thriving, because that one, the CPTSD book, is going to trigger you like nobody's business. So you'll need to take little breaks and go work on the self-esteem, and then go back, and then work on the self-esteem, and then go back. It's good to have 2 to be working on, but don't stop. This is the big mistake everybody makes, is they get scared. So they start recognizing stuff, they start feeling things, and then they go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I can't do this. Stop. You can do this. You've already survived the worst. You've already survived the worst. You're here. You've already survived the worst. Everything we are working on is a memory. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's scary. Yes, your inner child, that poor little kid inside, is freaking out. That's why you got to comfort that kid. Love that child. Allow that child to work through this, which means don't put the brakes on it. You validate it. You acknowledge it. Yeah, little one, this is scary. Yeah, I'm terrified. Yeah, I'm afraid of what I'm going to unearth. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to feel. Because that's what we've been running from if we're alcoholics, or addicts in any way. We run from feelings because it's scary. Because it wasn't okay when we were growing up, because we got punished for it, because, fill in the blank. So it's really important to face those fears. Fears are just thoughts. Danger is real. Fears are thoughts. Our body responds as if it's happening because of the amygdala. So remember, the amygdala is part of the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So the amygdala cannot tell the difference. This is why I say it says 3-0 stupid. It's like stupid. It cannot tell the difference between past, present, future, thought, real event, emotional threat, thought about an emotional threat. Everything to the amygdala is here now. That is why when we start thinking about abuse in the past, our heart starts pounding. You know, we start racing thoughts. We get fearful because our amygdala cannot tell the difference between, oh, this is a past event, and oh, here I am sitting in my living room and I'm safe. So that's why you have to really comfort your inner child. Hey, we're okay. This is okay. This is good. This is good that we're working on this. I know it's scary. I got your back. We're all good. I got your 6. It's good. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's important not to stop. Boy, that was a really long answer. So start with the self-esteem workbook and CPTSD. So yeah, there we go. All right. That's a good question. Thank you. All right. How do we deal with a covert narc mother who always tries to invalidate you and your decisions, but denies it when you call her out on it? You stop calling her out on it. You're not going to change these people. Let me just say that again. They, narcissists, abusers, do not, listen to me now, believe me later, change. Ever. Not on this planet Earth or any other planet Earth or any other planet. Okay? They do not change. They're not going to get it. Why do you keep going to a well that's poisoned and salted and dry? What are you doing? That's what you got to ask yourself. It's like, why do I keep going back and trying to wake them up? They're not going to wake up. They are not going to wake up. They are dedicated to staying in unconscious incompetence. They are never going to move from that level. Ever. Because as soon as they come up into conscious incompetence, that's when the blame, shame, guilt tripping happens. The you guns. And then they go right back into unconscious incompetence. They'll never grow. They won't. That's just who and what they are. So when you continually go to a parent and keep calling them out on the behavior, what are you hoping to gain? They're not going to change. Clearly, you just said that. They always try to invalidate you and denies it when you call her out on it. What are you getting out of this? What is your hope? What does your little kid inside want? What is that little one trying to do? Because that's who's driving this. You got to stop. You got to stop. They're not going to change. They're not going to get better. They're not going to have a V8 moment where they go, oh my gosh, I've been invalidating you and I've been doing this to you and I've been doing, they're never, I wish they would, but they're never going to do that. So for that, I would say you've got to go low contact, stop trying to call them out on it. Start working on you. Start working on the inner child. Inner Child Workbook by Catherine Taylor. Start working on it. CPTSD, From Surviving to Thriving, Pete Walker. Start working on it. Self-Esteem Workbook, Glenn Schiraldi. Start working on it. That's what needs to happen. The only person that can change in this scenario is you. They are not going to change. And no matter how eloquently you place your argument as to how they've been invalidating you, they'll never admit it. They're never wrong, remember? So, but they'll make you wrong. So love yourself, sweetie. Love yourself. Love that inner child. Comfort that inner child. But really work with that inner child and letting that inner child know, hey, mom's never going to be any different. We're going to stop calling her out because it's not going to do any good. All it does is damage us. Gentle with you, my love. Get with a good therapist. Get with a good therapist and start working on all of those books. Do it. Do it. You're worth it. Do it. Love that inner child. You be the parent to the inner child. Hey, little one, I know she's invalidated us, and you know what? She's full of doo-doo. I know what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Validate, 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 validate. Stop trying to get them to be healthy. They won't. So work on the inner child. Absolutely. Okay. How do therapists help clients deal with agoraphobia and learned helplessness? Can it be unlearned while in proximity to the original abusers? So therapists start working on the mistaken thoughts and the mistaken beliefs. Well, it depends on their modality. So CBT works on mistaken thoughts and mistaken beliefs. What are you telling yourself on a daily basis? How are those thoughts impacting how you behave? You know, so you start working on the mistaken thoughts, the mistaken beliefs. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Where did this come from? Who taught you to be afraid? You know, so that's all the stuff that it's so funny. I had a sweet little client call me up one time and they're like, okay, I want to start therapy, but I don't want to be pushed into anything. I don't want to be forced to do anything. And I kind of stopped and I went, well, therapy is about pushing you along, because if you could do it on your own, you would have. So that's how therapists help people. Is we don't shove people, but we do give gentle little nudges. It's like, okay, take a look at this. Ooh, here, take a look at this. What is this? Where did this come from? You know, curiosity. It's curiosity. It's like, what's going on? Let's figure this out. And you approach it with a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? It is very serious. It is, because you're helping people with their minds, with their mentality, with their mental health, with their, their past, their abuse, their this, their that. But you have to approach it with kind of a wonder and a curiosity and a joy. It's like, let's figure this out. This is really exciting to figure this out. Yes, I know it's terrifying. Yes, I get it. But it's also amazing. This is wonderful that you were able to have this amazing epiphany. Good for you. This is fantastic. Oh my gosh, but it's never been okay for me to speak the truth about my mom or my dad or my dad. I know. Look at you being brave. This is awesome. Wow. Do you see where I'm going with that? So you want a therapist that's going to be encouraging and joyful, I think is a good way to put it. And they will help you through that fear. Because the thing about fear is fear wants to be serious. Man, I'm serious. Gravitas. Oh, look how serious I am. You know what? Fear is just a thought. It's just a thought. Fear is false evidence appearing to be real. You cannot give it that gravitas. That's what our abusers wanted, is for us to believe the thought as opposed to reality. So yeah, so a therapist will help you with that. That's the one thing. And agoraphobia is fear. It's the fear of everything. So where did that come from? So that's why working with a good therapist that is well-versed in agoraphobia is a good thing. So, and learned helplessness. So that's the other thing. So abusers oftentimes infantilize the kids, wanting them to rely on them all the time. So it's like they simultaneously resent the kid for relying them on all the time, but then they do everything they can to sabotage the kids so that they will rely on them all the time because they don't want to be alone. So it kind of, with the learned helplessness, it's like, okay, let's challenge that thought. Where did you get that from? What was the agenda? Why did they do? What's going on? Let's figure this out. What can you do different? And the biggest way to give the middle finger to abusers is to become independent. Absolutely. And live your best life and be authentic and be you and have joy and go be awesome. So yeah, that's why getting with a good therapist really does help. So I hope that helps. And can you unlearn all of this while you're in proximity to the original abusers? Yes, you can. Caveat, but it is a little bit more difficult because here you are growing and moving forward and changing. And as soon as the abusers recognize you're not rising to the bait, you're not playing the games, you're not, playing into their rage or their anger, you're not trying to fix them, you're not trying to, play up to them, you're not trying to look for approval, they will start upping the ante because they want the same narcissistic supply. So it does make it more difficult. It is not impossible, but it sure makes it a hell of a lot more difficult. It really does. It's kind of like jogging up a down-going escalator, if that makes any sense. You have to keep going. You have to keep going because otherwise you're going to end up at the bottom again. So there's that. All right, kids, I went way long on this one. All right, so this weekend is Valentine's Day. And I want to talk about good communication skills. What do we need to know when we get into a healthy relationship? How to talk to our partners, how to talk to a boss, how to talk to a friend, how to talk to anybody. Because abusers, screwed up families do not teach us kids how to have good communication skills. And they teach us a bunch of really bad things. So I want to talk about, I statements. I want to talk about reflective listening. I want to talk about, being truthful and honest and not being fearful because they do teach us to avoid a lot and to hide things, and that's not healthy. So let's talk about healthy, good communication skills. So that's what we're going to talk about on Sunday. So you guys go have a fabulous few days, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.